System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, September 11th. I am Amin TMK alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello. How are you? Happy September 11th. Can I say that? We can say it, right? We're leftists. We can say we can say the truth, right?
Every day is a celebration. I'm happy to be here every day. You know what I'm saying? So
we have a lot to celebrate today. I feel like we won't get into all of it because we're here to talk about geopolitics. I do want to say, go back, check out our interview with Dr. Butch Ware. Was really fun to have a Green Party candidate on our show. I thought that was a big jump for us. We appreciate him and the Green Party for making that happen. Check it out. But let's move on to some geopolitics, shall we, my friend, if you're okay with that. This past earlier this week, Israel hit Qatar during a negotiation meeting with the Hamas negotiators. They were actually, from what we hear, not hit. The people who they were intending, the leadership, the negotiators were not hit, but several of their family members were killed. People in the building were killed as well. This is Qatar, right? So this is like an American ally.
They're
right?
supposed to be protected under the American military shield. I mean, part of CENTCOM is headquartered there. You know, a huge portion of the American naval fleet. You know, as far as the Persian Gulf goes, is anchored there. You know. So, yeah, I mean,
yeah. So, I mean, there's lots.
As you're supposed to be able to be.
There's lots there's lots to get to. OK, but I want to start with this. Let's hear what the official Qatari response was, and then we can break down that and we can see how we feel about that, because something is amiss. I think we can all agree about what happened here. So this is, this guy. Top official in Qatar, and here we go.
The attack happened at 3:46. The first call we had from an American official was at 3:56, which is 10 minutes after the attack. And after that, President Trump has spoken with His Highness the Emir. He condemned the attack, and the U.S. government position that they have no knowledge about the attack nor any coordination about it until it started to happen. Now, when they got the alert, when the alert has reached us, that's an information that I don't know right now. What I know that the official channels that we have with the U.S. Got notified by the U.S. after the attack by 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's see. Let's. I just want to break this down. So this is what we're being told, and I want you to just give me your opinion on all this. Okay, so Qatar wasn't told until it already happened. 10 minutes. That's what he's saying, and not only that, America did not know about this attack, is what he's also saying. At least inferring. At least that's what I got. I don't know what you got from it. They was like, we didn't know. They didn't know about it until it was in real time and it started to happen. And Qatar was notified 10 minutes after it happened. So there's a lot to figure out here. The United States didn't know about it is ridiculous, right? And I would think that the Qatar officials didn't know about it is also ridiculous. What are your thoughts?
Man, look, the thing about military stuff is it's always records. They talked about that on A Few Good Men, man. It's always records. There's always a log somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So first off, let's look at air defense, okay? Because we are presented with three distinct possibilities. One, the American surface to area air defense provided by Qatar failed to see its own F-35, not its own, but F-35s, which the platform would have intimate awareness with, right? I mean, they're developed in lockstep with each other. So it either failed to see them failed to fire, or 3, the defenses were shut off by the incoming Israeli attack. Like, none of those 3 options are good, right? Either it couldn't see it, it couldn't defeat it, or it was backdoored into not firing at all. So all 3 of those options are not good. The next thing that we have to deal with is the logistics of it, which is the thing that you can't get away from, the thing that's the telltale. And this is the ugliest part of it all. Israel flew through Syrian airspace, which was only made possible because of al-Julani and the terrorists that took over there, that were funded in no small part by the Gulf state and the Emiratis and the Qataris, right? They paid for this. By destabilizing Assad and making that government fall, whatever you think about Assad, right? It's al-Julani's government that has allowed, or at least done nothing to be able to inhibit, Israeli flights over their airspace. The other thing that's the telltale sign, and there's all kinds of word on the street about this, there were British refueler planes that were stationed at Qatar that left Qatar air bases, flew to rendezvous with the Israelis that were launching the sorties so that they had enough jet fuel to get back. Because again, I need to remind you, Qatar is quite far from Israel. People just think, oh, it's the Middle East. All that shit is not close, bro. Like, Qatar, you may as well be all the way in Iran. I mean, that's
I don't think people
step.
Understand how big Saudi Arabia is.
Right.
You know,
right?
Yeah. So you're thinking, oh, well, they just got to fly across Saudi Arabia. I think you said Syria as well. So, it's one of those things where it's like, remind yourself, too, that the Gulf is a huge desert, man. I mean,
so
a lot of it
forces you to believe that the Jordanians didn't detect anything. The Saudis didn't detect anything. The Syrians didn't detect anything, right? And then finally, the Qataris didn't detect anything. Like, if this is true, this is the official story is more problematic than the truth. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the reality is this had to be deeply coordinated. There are rumors that Turkey called the delegates. So let's also say one thing, because I think this is important. Those people didn't just happen to be in Qatar that day. They were essentially ordered to be there by the president of the United States via Witkoff, because this was part of negotiations. So once again, this is the larger platform of Israel trying to kill the people it's negotiating with. And this violates Qatar on several levels. One, Qatar is supposed to be absolutely protected by the United States. But 2, it's like guessed right. These people are only even in your country because you have assured them a certain level of security and a guarantee for their safety while they're there. This is a huge insult to every Qatari alive, not just the government.
It's humiliating. That's in the Arab world. It's humiliating to watch. A few weeks ago, Putin said the world starts and ends at the interest of Israel. And doesn't it feel like that with this? How many people had to be in on it for something like this to even occur? Mm-hmm. The Qataris, the Jordanians, the Saudis, the British, the Americans, obviously Israel, and possibly many more. I mean, it just, no matter what happens, no matter what Israel does, at the end of the day, everyone's got their back.
There's no level of subservience that will protect you when it comes to the empire. There is a favorite son and there are all the vassals.
Yeah.
Qatar could not have closer relations to the United States. They literally have Air Force bases there. They train with CENTCOM. And I mean, they're as close as you can be on paper, other than being in NATO. You know what I'm saying? And I dare say there's a lot more of the United States Navy in Qatar than there is in France. I dare say. I don't got the figures in front of me, but I'd be fucking amazed. So this is a nation state that's done even more to bend over backwards, to acquiesce to the will of the West. And it just shows, once again, the colonial mind state is the mind state of the policeman. I can go anywhere I want, whenever I want, And that's how you can figure, are you colonized? I'll just end it at, people say Israel would do this anywhere. I don't believe this. I do not believe that the Israelis would launch a daring airstrike into the middle of the Vatican and blow up some, you know what I'm saying? I just don't believe that. I don't believe that the IDF would fly into Cologne and blow up somebody because they are having a meeting. The fact that these kind of things happen in Qatar, it goes to show once again that mind state of the European as it relates to everyone else.
Talk about the subservience. We see this in places like Philippines. It's hard to just see your country just completely enraptured by the United States. This is from Megatron Ron. Qatar promised Trump 1.2 trillion in investments in May and gifted him 400 million Boeing 747-8 for use as Air Force One in May 2025. Today, Trump approved Israel's airstrike on Qatar's capital, Doha. So again, it just goes to the point of the only people that make money and get better and get richer and their lives improve are the people at the absolute top, which are just puppets of the United States, or at least willing to go along with the bullshit until it's time to pay the piper, really.
There are financial implications to this kind of stuff, too. I mean, you have to think about that. You have to think about, this was the capital city. This wasn't like some city on the outskirts of the border. They fired into the capital city of this country, a huge tourism destination in the Middle East. Lots of people go to Qatar, right? Lots of investment happens in places like this. Why would I want to invest in a city that cannot ensure, right, even that a building can be maintained, right? Like, these kind of things have real implications that damage these countries far beyond just the symbolic humiliation. They make these places look less stable, which make them less attractive to investment all around the world.
Yeah. It's bad for business. It's bad for the public. It's bad for, the survival of Palestinians too. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still about Palestine. This still surrounds the Holocaust there. I'm gonna pivot a little bit if I can. Big protests, massive protests going on in Nepal. Also, we saw this in Indonesia not too long ago. I believe Sri Lanka also a part of this. I'm going to throw this little picture up in here. I've been seeing this. Guys taking pictures and selfies here in the front of a burning, I guess, parliament building or royal house of some kind. I got to get my information better there. But you've seen this picture, I'm sure. And, my question is, as we see these things happen, obviously we want the people to have an uprising so they can be free of Western influence, and they can be, determine their own fates with their own governments. What are your thoughts? I don't want to say exactly how I feel right now, but I want to get your first initial thoughts on Nepal and Indonesia and just sort of these big massive protests. What are your early?
Like color revolution games, right?
Yeah,
and the thing
that's what I was thinking too.
There's certain things that tie them together. The fact that they're using a lot of the same iconography, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen, I think it's the Luffy from One Piece, on both of these protests. That's a really auspicious piece of paraphernalia to be tied to both of these protests, which are both in Asia, but actually not quite close to each other. You know what I'm saying? There's several things that are going on with this. And the signs in English are always a dead giveaway. Like, what portion of the population should you reasonably believe in Nepal speaks English well enough to the point where they're making posters in English? Like, I'm so tired of corruption in English. You know what I'm saying? So those are always dead giveaways. I think what's happening here is actually a little bit of the mastery of the empire. We talk about the empire being in decline, but one of the things that being the number one hegemon provided them the ability to do was game plan, and I think what we're seeing now is elements of full spectrum dominance. Once again, it's like, no matter what the calculations that the countries that we deem are our enemies, have put into, those calculations deal with us versus them. There's no way they can plan for all of this chaos that we're capable of doing that's never directly tied to us, right? So like, you have the Chinese war colleges and they're doing their simulations based on, okay, what's it going to be like to fight America or whatever they do, you know what I'm saying, to fight Japan, right? Whatever they do, fight the Philippines. But you're not planning for, okay, what happens if there's a government instability in Nepal while this is happening? How does this affect my logistics? What happens to the sea lane should Indonesia begin to have, issues, right? How does that affect shipping? You just can't plan for all of those kind of contingencies. You just, you know what I'm saying? And so that, once again, it's like just throwing chaos, into the world, because how it resolves is irrelevant. Those are problems for halfway around the world. It's not going to come back to America, or, so they imagine, right, in the playbooks when they're drawing up these plays. But this will happen. India shares a border with Nepal, and for many years has seen itself as its, kind of like spiritual big brother. Don't forget Gautama the Buddha was from Nepal, so huge ties to Buddhism, that go back thousands of years as far as their culture goes. And you can easily see this as a punishment, right, for India and for China. Okay, if we destabilize, Nepal, both of you, this is a drain on both of your economies. You're going to have to deal with the people that leave Nepal once, the government services are no longer reliable, right? We're always talking about, once again, it's an immigration bomb. This is something that makes those people have to leave their countries because the government is no longer stable. That doesn't help America in a direct way, except that it doesn't hurt them. It hurts. And it also punishes India, right? And I think that's really important. Like after India went to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, all the photos, him yucking it up.
Oh, Trump said it. I mean, he came out and he was like, look, I guess India is going to be joining with, the evil.
Darkest China.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Language.
I mean, certainly they were very out there and in front of it with rhetoric, harsh rhetoric.
And, so for me, it's always a matter of cui bono. What is the simplest, most, you know what I'm saying? Who's the person that gains the most from this, the easiest? Yeah, probably that guy had something to do with it,
Armenia and Azerbaijan became friends just a few weeks ago. Who would have thunk it? They wanted to share some borders with, against Iran or close to Iran. They were going to have American bases right there. Interesting. You ever heard of the Arab Spring? I remember the Arab Spring.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm not saying this is something that Asada talked about, actually. Instead of trying to create your own mass movements and try to create your own pushes and protests, you just join the ones that are already popular. Now, It's different with the Black Panthers because they're interested in a revolution, but the United States uses the same playbook. Right. They are looking to co-opt whatever natural momentum that you already have there with young people. And again, they love to say young people are fighting corruption. And as soon as you start hearing that, it's a bit of a dead giveaway. It is corruption in every country. It's a huge spectrum, from Ukraine, all the way over to China and Cuba.
West, to learn how to deal with corruption. What?
Yeah. And again, I remember the Arab Spring, and I was very excited about the possibility of, a new united Arab world. I think many people of the world want a return to that. And it's just unfortunate because at the end of the day, you see the fingerprints of Langley, you see the fingerprints of the NGOs, and people are always asking us on Inner City Left on Instagram. Follow us on Inner City Left. What do y'all thoughts are on, earlier with Sri Lanka and places like Myanmar and, which we've more formed an opinion on. But when these things
it takes
happen,
time, though. You got to dig into the crates, man.
you need time to see how the dust settles, and it's tough to always want to form an opinion really quickly. But we can do the best we can and say, hey, this smells like this, could be something else, who knows.
Maybe it's organic, and we'll be able to tell based upon the structures that come afterwards. Who are the first people that these countries make ambassadors to, right? Like if the first thing you do is you have an ambassador to Britain, the United States, and Israel, probably this government.
Wasn't that the Sri Lankan president?
Right. Yeah.
Where they just announced, he's going to be the president for a little bit. Yeah. And he was like some UN former bureaucrat kind of person. I mean, yeah. So the proof is in the pudding, man. And just give it some time and see how it works. But obviously, we support the mass mobilization of people. And, we are here for the decoupling of the West from the global South. We want that. We're interested in that, or at least in terms of military involvement and government takeovers and color revolutions and things like that. We want a world. I feel like if you're an American, you want to give a hand to the world just like China does. Just to I don't want to say reinstate, but just reinforce you as being a contributor of the world on the highest level. But you don't. All you do is exploit, and that's a tough thing. Other countries are seeing that, and when you see people like Marcos at the top of places like the Philippines, you're asking yourself, why on earth would I want someone like this to run my country?
So Marcos is legitimate, but
the Myanmar government isn't.
Right. Well, I was gonna say in Venezuela, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, Maduro, right? That's just
Maduro is illegitimate, but Marcos, son of Ferdinand Marcos, is definitely not corrupt, guys.
There's a couple countries I believe in. Central Africa too. I can't
like
remember.
it when the presidency passes from father to son.
You the president. Your dad was the president. Your grandfather's the president. I think that is a king's. I think that's a royal line or something. Or it is how about this? It's we have to continue. And look, this is the same thing with Assad. I mean, you don't like Assad and you don't want him to be a part of. You don't want him to be the president or. I mean, there's a king in Jordan, but now you don't want to have a king in Syria because this person is
king in Saudi Arabia.
Well, there you go. At least the crown prince. Yeah, I mean, it's just like there's kings and queens around. Y'all picking and choosing.
Yeah,
who you want to run with. So again, let's look at what happens on the ground, and is this a support of the movement? And are you going to be getting closer to places like China and the global South? Or are you more interested in doing business at the West? And that's a telltale sign, like you said.
I just want to say, we don't have it on the ticker, but I think this thing with Iran is going to be happening sooner than later. And there are certain giveaways, right? One, the president is talking to the IAEA all over again, trying to restart this whole, let's certify where it is, which seems like not a smart decision, except that it's tied to the Europeans removing the snapback sanctions, right? Which are the sanctions that the Europeans put on the Iranians for being, quote unquote, in violation of the joint comprehensive plan of action, the plan that the Americans made with Iran under Obama and the Europeans and Russia and China, that was torn up by Trump, right? So at the moment that the Americans broke the deal, the Europeans acted like, well, it's still binding, but the Americans were supposed to pay money to the Iranians. It didn't happen. At that point, the Iranians left the deal too. They're like, if the deal is off, the deal is off. Well, the snapback sanctions are based on the Europeans sanctioning Iran for no longer being part of that plan. And they're saying, we'll join again if you get the Europeans to get rid of the snapback sanctions. This is a clever move on several fronts, because there's just, let's be honest. I mean, Iran is sanctioned to hell. There's not much left to sanction, but the Europeans would rather eat a mountain of shit than give up one small. And the fact is, the EU will never get rid of those sanctions. And so it leaves Iran in a place where they can be like, see, we tried to join again. They just didn't want to work with us, you know? And Israel's just not going to give a fuck about that. They're just not. You know, it's not going to be a rhetorical thing with Israel. If there's any proof or even allegations that there's any type of enrichment happening, you can expect an attack. And in many ways, you can see the attack on Qatar as a test run. Because Qatar is, again, almost there. I mean, you just crossed the sea and now you're in Iran. So if you could fly all the way up to Qatar, right, that's a whole nother route of attack that the Iranians have to prepare for. And in many ways, it's the warning is to Iran. It's not even about Qatar.
Yeah,
and we can also,
and think about this too. I mean, the Yemeni prime minister was also killed too. So you now, again, Israel's just attacking several countries. This is all about Israel. You know, it's all about turning the Arab world into a submissive for the West. And the holdouts like Iran and Yemen, they are going to get the worst of this. As we've seen, we also, I mean, we let's not talk about the Lebanese government saying that the Northern Resistance has to disarm. I mean, there is a lot going on right now in the Middle East when it comes to the destabilization of those governments and the capturing of those political units.
The balkanization of Lebanon, just like Syria, because you're talking about a civil war at this point. If the civil defense forces, have to be disarmed, there's only one way you can take a gun from someone with a gun. You have to kill that person. People with guns don't give up guns. They just don't.
That's why they got a gun.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have to take their stuff. As soon as you take a gun, then you can take their stuff. So that's the whole thing about that, And that's, again, what we were talking about
in Lebanon. That's brewing.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about with Butch, too. And, I mean, it's just at the point now where, unfortunately, the world's a dangerous place, and you need to be able to arm yourself. And the only thing that seems to be working against the Western apparatus is armed resistance. So, that's just, again, proof in the pudding. I'm going to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, all the good stuff. Like, subscribe, comment. You know what it is. We're almost at that 700 subscriber mark. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Y'all, we got patrons. We're doing our thing. We doing what we can. And we're not going to stop. And Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, InnerCityLeft.com. Lil Tanky everywhere you find music. I mean, TMK everywhere you find music. And I think that's what I got for us, my friend. Final thoughts from you, Tanky?
You smell that, Ike? Smell like someone died.
Yeah, Tombstone reference. For the new, the new Doc Holliday himself, Emoji Lil Tanky Sumler. I am Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.